Salam Dr. Rana.
Salam, Brother Yong.
I'm so glad today to be able to meet you at Glucose Center, and I must thank you for your time, sharing with us your experience with Swami.
It's a pleasure.
First of all, could you share with us when did you first came to know Swami?
Well, I did my studies in Andhra Pradesh. I was a medical student there, and that was in the year between 1967 to about 1973. But at that time, I did not hear much about Swami. When I came back here, I was posted to different hospitals here. But at that time too, I heard a little bit about Swami, but I never really had an interest or had an interest in knowing Swami. But as time went on, somewhere around in the 90s, early 90s, my wife became interested in this Sai movement, and she was attending bhajans with our children. We went to Penang Center, the earliest that was to be started in Penang. And they were not having their own building, but they were conducting all bhajans and other activities in Penang Road, Krishna Temple. So what I was doing was to just drop them there and come back and pick them up after the bhajans. So that was my job. So until one day, my wife insisted that I should be there for a Namavali. I say, what is this Namavali all about? You know, what they say is that it should be done in a pair. The husband and wife must do the Namavali. All you have to do is to sit there and then just offer a flower, the lotus feet. When you hear the word Namaha, that's all she said. So what I did was, I was diligently waiting to listen to the word Namaha, and I was offering the flowers. So the Namavali was over, and after that they started the bhajans. And then the bhajans, there was the bhajans book. What I did was I just opened the first page of the bhajans book, and there I saw the words with Baba's photo on the top: "You cannot escape from me." I was really laughing to myself. Who is he, a mortal being, trying to say, "You cannot escape from me"? But somehow I was drawn into this fold. I don't know for what reasons. And then I started involving myself, going for bhajans. And then since they found that I could sing a little more bhajans, I was involved in bhajan singing. And later took some service activities, involved myself in service activities, and also took up some posts, and thereby we just went on like that, coming into Sai fold.
So when did you make a trip to Pati?
That was, I think, 1994, along with Uncle Fee and group. And then we had the blessings of Swami by having an interview in his room. During that time, there was he materialized, Swami materialized some of the things for other people. And he cautioned my son. You know, he was trying to take a photo. He cautioned my son, "Boy," and then he couldn't click the camera. That was, I think that seemed to be a miracle.
Doctor, tell us something about some of the Swami discourses or written literature that you have read.
I happened to pick up a book called Bhagavad-vahini, where it's by the discourses given in the Vahini series by Swami himself. This Bhagavad-vahini is a book which describes the leelas of Lord Krishna when he was a young boy, his leelas and pranks and his activities during his young age. And I started reading. The moment I started reading the book, I didn't have the heart to put it down because it was so very well written, and it was really, you can feel the love for God as such in that Bhagavad-vahini. Suddenly I had an urge. How nice will it be? I read it in English. How nice will it be if I can translate it into Tamil? Because it can really stir up the emotions and the feelings for God. Bhagavatam itself means is love for God. So, without even asking for permission or anything like that from Prashant Nilayam, I started translating during my free time. Especially after work, I used to spend a few hours trying to translate 1 or 2 pages all the time. And I completed in time. Not only that, we took up that translation to do the reading in our center with other members in Tamil, and we were going through the chapters. So that was part of the activities which we conducted on the book which I translated. And later, I communicated with the convener of the Prashanthi Nilayam Book Trust, and to my amazement, they said this book has been translated into other languages except Tamil. So they asked me to submit that translated book, and they did a little bit of addition on that, and they said you can go ahead and print.
So what is the miraculous part of this particular assignment that Swami gave you?
Okay. So the thing is, it looked as if the job was just waiting for me and nobody else. As you all know, in India, especially in Tamil Nadu and throughout India for that matter, there are esteemed professors in Tamil. Even in the Sai organization as such, there are people very well versed in Tamil who can do the translation, who could have come out with this. But it looked as if this job was just for me. Because if you talk about my knowledge in Tamil is rather very, very shallow or low. Because when we talk about that, I'll have to go back to the other things where I really learned Tamil. I was born in India, and I was sent to the school until standard 2. After standard 2, my father brought us here back to Penang. That was in 1974 when I was 7 years old. And he put me in Tamil school in standard 2 again. So I was supposed to go to standard 3, but then he put me in English medium school in St. Xavier's in standard 1. So that was the knowledge I was having as far as Tamil studies is concerned. But I kept touch in Tamil by reading magazines, this and that. And then my father used to coach me in writing letters, this and that for his business. That was all the touch I had. But surprisingly, I also had an opportunity to be taken into this teacher's training for Tamil, which was on a weekly studies, and I also succeeded in becoming a teacher at the age of about 13 or something like that. And then I also sat for my SPM without any formal going to schools, and I also passed my examination in SPM Tamil language. So having contacted this convener, when the book was already translated, the convener arranged for me to see Swami in order to get his blessings. So I wanted him to sign my book before being published. So I was in the mandir early morning. I was sitting there, and Swami came along. I was having the pen in my hand. The book was not open. I looked at him, but no words were coming out of my mouth. I was very disappointed in the sense that, I had a golden opportunity to get him to sign my book, and I thought I lost my chance. But all the chances were not lost, because the next day we were lined up for the farewell day, for all those doctors who were serving during that festive period. And Baba came along, and then I was ready with my book. This time I opened the book. I was having the pen in my hand. I was just waiting for him to come along and ask him to sign the book for me. And then again, I was really surprised because there were no words coming out from my mouth. What he did was he looked at the book. He didn't touch the book, but then he just materialized vibhuti and he sprinkled over my head. That was the closest sort of an encounter which I had with Swami. And I think his blessings from that day has been working all the while.
Very good. Is there, following that, is there other books that you have translated into Tamil?
Yeah. So there's another book which I translated into Tamil again. That was the summer showers in Vrindavan. This book is about Bhaja Govindam. It really stirs up one's mind towards God.
Dr. Rana, tell us something about some of the personal experience you have with Swami in terms of how it comes into your life.
Well, if you talk about transformation as such, I was, my anger has come down. I became more charitable. I became more peaceful. I became a little more kind-hearted. And with his insistence of becoming vegetarian, I've become vegetarian for the last 20 odd years. So, and then when you talk about vegetarianism, it just not only transforms you, it creates some sort of compassion, kindness towards animals and all living beings also. Now looking back, I think he has intervened right from the time of my birth. I was conceived here in Malaysia and then delivered in India, and I was there for 7 years for some reason to learn what Hinduism is about, because the house was just opposite one Ganesha temple. So to know something about Hinduism, spirituality, he kept me there for 7 years, brought back here. He put me in Tamil school for 2 years and put me in English school for some reason, and then took me back to India for my medical studies. Then he brought me back here, and then he introduced himself sometime in the 90s. It's all his making.
So everything, you can now see all the linkages.
The linkage is there. So, and then I went to Andhra Pradesh. That is also a blessing in the sense that I was able to learn a little bit of Telugu. I was learning the script, and that was helpful in that, summer showers in Vrindavan, which I was talking about. There, Baba has written some of the verses in Telugu, and I could read and just put it in Tamil verses and other things.
So he has prepared you.
He prepared that is an intervention.
Yeah.
Again, there was a chance for me to learn a little bit about Hindi in Chennai during the school holidays or college holidays. And that has helped me in knowing the alphabets and words about in Hindi And that is now helpful in for me learning Vedic chants and also teaching Vedic chants in Sai centers now. You see, and I owe every bit of my moment to him. There are incidences which has happened. One is, I was having, this was after my 60th birthday, I was having some tightness over the neck, especially during exertion. And as being a doctor, I thought it could be due to heart, but I wanted to go for a checkup. So what I did was, I did my blood test, I did my resting ECG. I took all this to go and see a cardiologist in Adventist hospital. And then he did the echo and he did the stress test. After the stress test, he says, "You are not going home. You have to do the angiogram because we see some changes in the stress ECG." So the angiogram report came. He said, "You are not still going home. You have scored very, very well, very high, 60, 70, 80, 90%. You have wonderful blocks in 4 of the vessels. So you're not going home. You decide either on a bypass or have some stents." So I opted for the stents. And then it was done successfully. The next day I was discharged and I was back singing bhajans after a week. So that's the incident. It's not so much about the stance or the intervention, but the timing of the intervention. Supposing I had not gone at that particular time, what would have been my situation? If we look back on that, the block could have got completely blocked, the vessels could have been completely blocked, and they would have to call an ambulance to take me to hospital in an emergency state. I'll be in ICU. They'll be saying they won't be able to do anything because my condition would have been worse. So it's the timing of the intervention that is really necessary. The other incident is that just about 2 years ago, I was having some problem with piles. So I went to see a colonoscope surgeon. Is that he said he can remove the piles, but he was advising me on doing a colonoscope because of my age and things. And then during that colonoscope, he found a tumor. And then he said, "I'm not going to do your piles, but I'll refer you to another surgeon who can remove a tumor and follow up there." Here again, I would like to highlight the intervention by Swami. It started off as small piles, but had scope was not done that time, it could have gone into serious problems. It could have turned cancerous or otherwise. You see, and thanks for me, it was not a cancerous tumor. And one other recent incident was a few months ago. I went with my family, my wife and my daughter, to attend a funeral. And for the 8-day prayers, we were coming back. The previous night, we had a very tiring sort of night, in the sense that we were singing bhajans and then having prayers at the deceased home in KL. And we went to Templars Park, came back early morning about 6 o'clock, continued with the prayers, and about by 10:30 we started to come home. So we decided that I'll drive until the Tapa rest place. Then about 20 minutes drive from Tapa, suddenly I heard some noise. Then I opened my eyes And I realized that I have been sleeping for a while in a highway, a busy highway. The noise was because we went over to the shoulders of the road, and I looked up. As far as I could see, there were no cars in front. And I looked into the rear mirror, and there were no cars for a long stretch of distance. And then my daughter woke up also because of the noise. And I should say it was really a miracle. You can never imagine a long stretch of this highway to be free for someone to sleep while driving. And then what happens when you are asleep? Your body and limbs all become limp. So you tend to not hold the steering also. And then the car could go anyway. So that is really a miracle.
So, Dr. Ratna, you are now the chairman of Penang Center. And could you share with us some of the activities, something very special that you can share with our viewers, the programs that you're having in Penang Center?
Okay. The important source for any center to build up is the EHV. So the EHV group of students are very important in order to increase the number of members in your center, because along with them the parents are there to be involved in your center. And then we have introduced some sort of classes of interest to young people, youngsters, youths. For example, we have the tabla class introduced recently, and then recently they had this examination in tabla class, and now they are certified tabla classes. At one time there were no nobody was there to play drums or anything like that. Now we have certified tabla players. And then especially the ladies are interested in some cultural activities. So we have introduced Bharatanatyam classes. And the Bharatanatyam classes we built up very well. And then we had them perform in the Krishna temple for birthday celebrations. So that is another good achievement. The other thing is our regular activities like service activities and other things. But more importantly, recently we have introduced what we call mobile divine chanting. This mobile divine chanting, though it was started from our center, Penang Center, we also have other centers coming in, a few of them joining them. This is how they work. What they do is, if there is a request by the patient or their relatives, they go to their places in a group of 3 to 4 people, go and chant Gayatri silently and come back. And then it is when so very popular that sometimes they go regularly to their houses to do the chanting. And recently I was told that one of them have recovered very well by regular chanting of this Gayatri chanting.
Dr. Ratna, I understand that you have also composed some songs, and could you share with us?
Well, coming to think about it, I think the recent SciCon which we had in Penang was something of an eye-opener to me. I could see the hands of Swami behind the whole thing. As you all know, the SciCon was, we had the recent SciCon after many years, more than 10 years. And it was the time when I became chairman of Penang Center. And the task of having 1 hour of entertainment for that for Penang branch, for Penang Center, And I had our team discuss for the event. And what happened was that suddenly I came across this nursery rhyme, Baba Black Sheep. So I was very impressed. Not because it's a very, very common nursery rhyme, Baba Black Sheep, but the words in that nursery rhyme were repeatedly repeating the words of Baba. And then it was talking about sharing, caring, that sort of thing, which is of value. And then I didn't find some other nursery rhyme which was very close to this. And suddenly the thought came that I could put it in, I could compose a song based on this nursery rhyme. And suddenly I took out a pen and started writing the lyrics for this. And it turned out well. What I did was I discussed with my team, and when they heard the song, they were agreeable to having a dance for it, for the song.
Yes, Swami, yes, we hardly ever miss. We serve you, Master, we serve all people, we serve all creation's happy world. Baba, devotees, yes, Swami, yes, we all do agree. We teach all children, we teach all youths, we teach them all. You're very and you care, giving, caring, sharing, nothing shows your way of living. Loving, caring, sharing, nothing always from within.
Sharing makes our life happy, Baba. The more we share, the more we have, Baba. Sharing makes our life joyful, Baba. Sharing is a way of caring, Baba.
Baba, say Baba, we love you so much. Baba, say Baba, we need your grace and much. Bless us, Baba, teach us, Baba, guide us all, Baba. Full of hearts of all, we live our lives of Baba. Full of hearts of all, we live our lives of Baba. Full of hearts of all, we live our lives of Baba.
During those days, when we had some sadhana camp, I had this Namasmarana as a subject. I put up a few slides, and then again I had that instinct to compose bhajans on Nama Japam, Namasmaran. Namasmaran is the same as Nama Japam. And I was able to compose both in Tamil as well as in English. Nama Japam Sai Nama Japam, Nama Japam Sai Nama Japam. Fear can be overcome with Sai Japam. Fear can be overcome with Sai Japam. Nama Japam Sai Nama Japam, Nama Japam Sai Nama Japam. Om Sai Ram is a Dharaka mantra. Om Sai Ram is a Dharaka mantra. The ocean of life can be crossed with this yantra. The ocean of life can be crossed with this yantra. Think of Baba while reciting this mantra. Think of Baba while reciting this mantra. Be thrilled with devotion and attain liberation. Be thrilled with devotion and attain liberation. Nama Japam Sai Nama Japam. Sai Namam irukkail edu bayam. நாம ஜபம் சாயி நாம ஜபம், சாயி நாமம் இருக்கையில் ஏது பயம். ஓம் சாயிராம் எனும் தாரக மந்திரம், ஓம் சாயிராம் எனும் தாரக மந்திரம், வாழ்க்கை கடலை கடக்க ஓர் யந்திரம், வாழ்க்கை கடலை கடக்க ஓர் யந்திரம். பாபாவை நினைந்து சொல்வோம் இம்மந்திரம், பாபாவை நினைந்து சொல்வோம் இம்மந்திரம். பக்தி பெருகிடும் முக்தி கிடைத்திடும், பக்தி பெருகிடும் முக்தி கிடைத்திடும். நாம ஜபம் சாயி நாம ஜபம், நாம ஜபம் சாயி நாம ஜபம். ஓம் சாயிராம் ஓம் சாயிராம், 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 ஓம் சாயிராம் ஓம் சாயிராம்.
So, Doctor, the final question is, who is Sai Baba Swami to you?
Sai Baba is everything because he is all-pervasive. The divine principle that is there.
Thank you, Doctor, for
Thank you.
sharing your
Sairam.
experience with us, and may God bless you. Sai Ram.
Thank you, Sairam.